WWDC 2024 just wrapped up, and there are a lot of things coming down the pipeline with Apple in 2024's new updates to iOS, macOS, VisionOS, watchOS. So let's get right into all of the new changes, including AI. And no, it doesn't stand for artificial intelligence. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about, just get it out of the way, is VisionOS 2. So VisionOS 2 brings about some big changes to how you navigate with VisionOS, in addition to some feature updates to a number of Apple apps and Apple functions. So one of the things that they've updated is how you navigate with it. So no longer do you have to look up to bring the control panel. You just move your hand a bit and it brings up the control panel. You can update settings and such right there. In addition to some updates in the Photos app and being able to do SharePlay with photos with someone on FaceTime, there's also updates to how you use your Mac in conjunction with VisionOS or the new Apple Vision Pro. So the Apple Vision Pro now can have different aspect ratios for how you view your Mac when using that continuity Mac display. So no longer are you stuck with the form factor that it gives you when you turn on that continuity, when you open up your MacBook and you view the display through the Vision Pros. Now you can use widescreen, an ultra-wide, or essentially a wraparound ultra-wide, equivalent to two 4K screens, essentially on top of your eyes. So it's much more immersive. You can do a lot more work, and this is something that I was really hoping for when I first got the Vision Pro, and I tried to extend the window of the macOS. It didn't seem to work, so I'm glad that that feature is here now. It's going to make productivity even better when using the Vision Pro. Okay, so now let's get to what you've all been waiting for, the updates on iOS and macOS, and some watchOS in there as well, and tvOS. So much like the title of this video, Apple is going Android, or Apple is becoming Google, because I hate to be the person to say that, but after using a lot of Apple products for many years now, and being also an Android person and Windows person for many years, it's really funny to see how many of these features people have been clamoring for on the Apple ecosystem finally coming, it seems like all at once, to really make them come to parity with these other operating systems. So starting with iOS 18, we see a very specific feature that you might recognize from actually Google's own Pixel devices running pure Android. So a feature that they brought out a bit ago was based on the background you choose for your device or the lock screen, the icons and the theme of the device match the color scheme of that to give it more of like an aesthetic feel if you want to customize your icons in that way. Well, Apple has done exactly that. So now you can actually change the colors of your icons, and they don't even have to match the background. You can choose whatever colors you want. And in dark mode at night, you can have dark icons, which I do quite like. And now, finally, you don't have to have your icons stick to the standard grid. You can put your icons wherever you want to really showcase that background, or you could even have them, you know, like one in one corner, one in the other corner, however you like it. So that's a really nice change to see coming to iOS. Another thing will be in the control panel, and this kind of goes also back to the lock screen, but the control panel is now very functional. It's functional, yes, but it's also very customizable. So you can add a lot more widgets to it from third-party apps, and it now has a scrolling feature for music and other apps that are supported. In addition to those widgets in the control center now being able to be mapped to your lock screen, where you would traditionally have your flashlight or your camera, you can now have many different things, from the Snapchat camera to going straight to the calculator or straight to the Notes app to make a new note. It's really endless, the possibilities now with the customizability in terms of the control center and those buttons, which is something that honestly, I'm really happy about. And they're adding more functions to the action button, which a lot of people are really happy about, it seems, online. Another feature that's coming to the home screen, lock screen, the functionality, customizability of the iPhone and iOS 18 is the ability to hide and lock apps. So you can hide apps in a hidden part of the app drawer if you don't want people to know about them that is locked, or you can just individually lock apps that will then require you to authenticate before getting into them, for those of you that have sneaky things all around your iPhone. There's also a lot of productivity enhancements in the new 18 of iOS and watchOS and iPadOS. Well, actually, technically, watchOS is not on 18, but I digress. The big productivity gains really come in terms of AI, but again, it's not the AI that you're thinking, but we'll get to that towards the end. Right now, we're going to talk about the Mail app and messages and such. So let's start with the Mail app. The Mail app gets a redesign where it is way more powerful than it has traditionally been in terms of it just being a list and there's no organization, to now having it categorizing your emails by type. So you'll have your primary, you'll have those promotions, urgent ones, such, stuff like that. Marketing emails, but then you'll also have them categorized by company. If you might have a bunch of emails from United or a bunch from Amazon, they will all show up together and you can delete all those emails together as well. So really nice to see a bit more functionality coming from the Mail app. But going to the Messages app, sticking with communication, we now are able to delay send or schedule send text messages. Thank you. I like that feature quite a bit, especially if you use your phone not only for personal business, but for business. And then also the tap back feature, which I also personally use quite a bit, giving those thumbs up or hearts or whatever it might be. You can now use whatever emoji you want. And that is where we'll transition to talking about the AI. So AI, in Apple terms, because Apple has to have their own for everything, is going to be Apple Intelligence. That might be the funniest name they've ever come up with because it is so blatantly just trying to make something their own that isn't. It's funny. I mean, it is what it is. But essentially, it's AI as in artificial intelligence all around the phone. Apple really wanted to reiterate that privacy and security come first in terms of Apple Intelligence. So much of the functions happen on device. So you'd either have to have an A17 Pro or any of the M line of devices to be able to use Apple Intelligence, but it will now work, like I said, on device with your personal data in conjunction with the AI to give you deeper and better responses and work better with your workflow. And so that's something that AI has been lacking, is that really personal touch to things that you do. Google is starting to do it as well, but it really does seem like Apple is becoming Google because they took a lot of the features that Google announced during their recent event, and they're going to be integrating those into the upcoming releases of all the Apple software. So, like I mentioned, the emojis. The emojis can now be whatever emoji you want because you can use a prompt to say, I want an alligator wearing a birthday hat. And that will now be one of the emojis that you can use as a tapback. This also means that in your messages, you could create images and GIFs of whatever you want. And they can actually be of people in your camera roll or your contacts. So you could have, let's say Samantha wearing a birthday hat because it's her birthday with balloons in the background, and you send that to her on her birthday. So these are things that you can now do because it's doing all of the processing on device with your personal information in addition to using AI. So that's actually really cool to see. That's something that none of the other companies are doing in terms of really integrating it more personally into your lives and giving it those use cases that actually you might use day to day instead of just a chatbot. But before we get too deep into all of the AI stuff, I want to leave that a bit later because there is so much of it. Let's get back to all of the software updates. So going back to communication, when you're wearing your AirPods, if someone calls you, you can just nod yes or no to answer to a prompt that Siri might be asking you. Like if someone's calling you, do you want to answer it? You can say yes or no. If someone is texting you, you can, it'll ask, do you want to reply? You can say yes or no without actually verbally having to communicate with Siri. So that is really cool. In addition, if you're on a phone call and you want to record that phone call, you can now do that. So it will record the phone call, let the other person know, and transcribe the call. So a really nice feature that we have also seen from Google, recently announced, and also Samsung that has now integrated that into their current S24 Ultras and their S24 lines. So it seems like everybody's kind of coming together and doing a lot of the same features, all with their own twist. And Apple, of course, going with that privacy security twist on AI. One of the even more blatant copies, I would say, of Google, and look, I want to say I'm not complaining about these copies because they do make your life better and they are great features, so I don't mind them copying each other as long as it benefits the consumer. But one of those is the what is it? The Photos app. I don't know why I blinked there. But the Photos app, of course, the Photos app is something that almost everyone uses on a daily basis, and it's getting a very big revamp in iOS 18. A lot of that coming with AI. So with AI, you can give it prompts to say, grab this photo of this person wearing this outfit from this trip, and maybe boost it, make it look a little bit better. So it'll do all of that. It'll find that photo, it'll edit it, and it'll be ready for you to send over to your friend. But also, it'll take groups of people, it'll make better movies, those automatic movies you often find in your iPhone. It'll actually create story arcs and narratives, so that's really cool to see. But one of the features that I actually have been using since it came out is Magic Eraser from Google Photos. Well, that same feature is now coming to Apple natively in the Photos app. So before I would have to, make sure that my photos got uploaded to my Google Photos account and go use that feature there, and also had to have a Google One account. Now it's native to the iPhone's Photos app where you can circle something and get rid of it that's in the background. And they did mention that it won't ruin the subjects, which was an odd call out, but it is actually something that goes wrong in Google Photos. So it was just interesting that they put that little note in there. But a lot of those features are now coming to the iPhone on the Photos app. Let's talk about macOS, watchOS. So really, macOS is getting even better. And again, these updates, some of them can be very incremental, but some of them are pretty huge considering everything that's going on with AI right now. But one of these features has literally been on the top of the list for many people for 2 decades now, and it's snapping of windows. So in Windows, if you've never used Windows before, you can drag a window and it'll snap to the right, left, or if you drag it to the top, it'll go full screen, things like this. It seems so natural to someone that comes from Windows and goes to Mac, and on Mac you're like, what the heck is going on? I currently use an app called Rectangle to be able to get this function where I can just drag windows and they'll snap to various parts of my screen. And so now that's just coming natively to Mac OS, which pretty much puts apps like this out of business, unfortunately for them. But it's great for the consumer to finally see this as a native feature. So another thing that is coming to the Mac that we also saw with iOS was customizability of the control panel. And oh, by the way, Mac OS is going to be called Mac OS Sequoia. So that's kind of cool. I like that name. It looks good. And obviously it's from the Sequoia trees that exist in Northern California. But going back to some of the new features, we also get a lot of those AI features coming to the Mac. So of course in the Photos app as well. But a new function, which is interesting and kind of a thing in Windows, is being able to connect to your phone. So of course we have continuity as part of the ecosystem, the Apple ecosystem, where you can get your text, AirDrop, you can copy paste things between devices. Well, now the integration is getting even deeper because now on your Mac, you can actually virtually display your iPhone, even if it's in a different room, onto your Mac and use it as if you had it right here in the palm of your hand. So you'll get a virtual display of that iPhone with all the notifications, the sound, whatever is going on your iPhone now on your Mac. Now, I don't like this. I mean, obviously it's great and it's good to see more features. I'd rather have more things than less things. But it is an issue for those who don't want to get distracted by their phone by putting it in another room. Well, now you have it on your Mac all the time. So it's pretty hard to not get distracted by your phone if you're trying to get work done in a focused bubble, a deep focused bubble, because now you also get your iPhone notifications on your Mac. So you'll have to be a lot more diligent about silencing those notifications before this update happens, or just turn this setting off. But it can also be very useful if you want to order something from like the Starbucks app and such. So that's a really cool app integration ecosystem thing that we can see coming from the Mac and the iPhone, especially because your iPhone looks like it's not even in use when this is happening. Now, one thing that was teased quite a bit before this event was Apple coming out with their own password manager app. And so indeed, we did see this. It's coming out for all of their devices, not just the Mac, but they showed it off in the macOS presentation. And essentially, it is that. It is a password manager for anything. So it could be Wi-Fi passwords, passwords from any accounts. And the good thing is, if you already use the passwords integration on your iCloud keychain, these will all move right over into your passwords app. So no worries on that end. Now, if you do use a different password manager, I haven't seen what they've said about moving data over from there. I assume it would probably be a bit more difficult because it is Apple, but that is to be seen as, of course, these things are not available just yet. It is WWDC right now, the week of the development conference, and all of these updates that I've been talking about will be coming out to the general public in the fall when we get the updates for the iPhone and the Mac and the Watch, etc. So moving to iPadOS is one thing that everybody has been clamoring for since the iPad came out. It's the calculator app. So the calculator app is finally on the iPad, but it's not what you think. And honestly, it's way more powerful than we could have ever imagined. So of course it does have a traditional calculator, of course, but it has a new page on it called Math Notes. I forgot the name for a bit there, but Math Notes essentially is very similar to your Notes app in terms of aesthetics, but as you're writing things out, you could write out functions, problems with different variables, and it will actually calculate all of that very intelligently right there in the notes, and it will even keep it in your handwriting as you're doing it, and you can change it up as you please. You can change variables, and it will update the entire formula and the answer. And you can even do it as a graph. So if you have a y equals, etc. Function, you can actually show that as a graph as well by just clicking on the equal sign. So really cool features that I wish I had when I was in school. But in any case, I think a lot of third-party apps will also be kind of put out of business by this one. So the Notes app, as I briefly just mentioned, also got quite a few updates. So as you're writing, and sorry, this video is getting long, but there was just a lot of things announced. It's not as small event as we all thought. It was almost 2 hours long. But the Notes app is getting some great updates, especially for those that use it as power users. So like I mentioned, with AI, you can now generate images. Well, in the Notes app, you can now use those images in line with whatever notes you're taking. So let's say you're taking notes about an architecture project and you have a specific type of building in mind. Well, now you can use Apple Intelligence to generate you an image of what you're talking about to give it more of a visual flair on those notes. You can also, as you write, have Apple redo your handwriting to still keep the essence of how your handwriting looks, but just make it more legible. So it'll straighten it out, it'll make sure everything looks a little bit clearer, so when you're reviewing those notes, they're actually more useful. And if you copy and paste a bunch of text into a handwritten note, it will actually, I mean, this one's just crazy. It will match that text to your handwriting and add it in there as if you wrote it. And of course, you can still edit it and everything as if it was typed out text. And so that is, I mean, for someone who grew up using these devices, I used a Surface Pro in high school, and I've used an iPad Pro in college, writing notes out. I mean, this is insane. And I've been using Notability for quite some time. I used Evernote back in the day. I think now with these updates, the native Notes app in the iPad is going to be the place to take notes. Now, they didn't touch on anything in terms of organization, but with the ability to use Apple Intelligence to just ask it, oh, can you pull up that one thing that I was talking about a year ago, whatever it might be, and you can be pretty vague too, and it'll do that. That'll be really great actually for your notes and being able to pull up information whenever you need it. So I think I'm going to be switching to that as well. And by the way, the Journal app, I forgot to mention, is getting some updates. You can keep up with key stats on how you've been taking notes, streaks, things like that, how long, things like that. It's still not getting like a full-fledged makeover, but you can also include like your mood on your journal notes and things like that. So moving over to WatchOS, it is, again, not huge updates, but updates that are very functional. So with the widgets that you see when you scroll up from your watch face, you can now get more actionable widgets, and widgets will automatically display that are relevant, such as if it's about to rain and you have a calendar event where you're going to be doing something away from your home, it might show that, hey, it's going to be raining for the next 20 minutes or so. So there's going to be different additions like that, but where they really focused was on the health and fitness aspect. So now with your fitness app, you can actually pause your rings for a day or more, which is a really interesting thing to see. I wonder how they're going to do that, going back. But you also have a new Vitals app. So the Vitals will take in information across all the sensors and all your data to really get a comprehensive view of how you're doing. And if multiple things are going wrong with your body, it'll let you know. So that's very interesting to see. But a really good feature for those who are working out quite a bit and maybe don't want to overtrain is one that Whoop and Oura Ring have had for a bit now, and it's your strain. And now that's something that's part of the Apple Watch as well. So it'll tell you, how much you are training and if your body is kind of at its limit or if you're not training hard enough. So that's a really cool thing to see, and I'm always curious about that. I don't have a Whoop or an Oura Ring. I just rely on my Apple Watch. So having that feature now is a lot nicer and will really help me with my training abilities to know when I can push a little bit harder and when I should dial it back to allow my body to recover enough to push harder on those days when I can. So of course, the last thing I got to talk about in terms of software updates is tvOS, and tvOS is getting just a couple updates where it'll give you more relevant information about what you're watching, be it on screen or on your phone if you're using it as a remote, with a couple other updates such as putting whatever you're viewing into an ultra wide screen of format if you're using a projector and such. But really, I want to finish this video off by talking about Apple Intelligence. I was going to talk about Apple AI, but it is still AI, but it's Apple Intelligence instead of artificial intelligence. So, like I said, the name. But Apple Intelligence is something that they're developing internally, but with a twist. So when you need to ask Siri questions, and now Siri is getting a big overhaul as well, but when you want to ask Siri questions that involve it pulling information from the web or building something a little bit more comprehensive, like helping you write, it will use the help of ChatGPT, and it will be integrated with Siri now. Or let's say you're writing an email and you need it to help you write an email or make it more concise or make it more professional or make it more casual. It will try to do that on its own, or if it can't, it will use ChatGPT. So there's a bit of an integration there, but it will always ask you if it's okay to send that information to ChatGPT for help. Let's say you take a picture of your yard and you're asking, do I want to add, what kind of plants should I add to my yard that will make it look nice? You can send that over. It might ask ChatGPT. It'll ask you first, and then it'll give you an answer, like maybe you want some ferns or such like that. So there is a bit more integration, and Apple is a bit behind in terms of AI because they are still relying on a third party to give them those results. But like I mentioned, with writing, it's going to be really cool to see, if you write an email, you can have it make it more concise or completely write it for you, give it different prompts and such. So you're really getting a lot of those features. And the biggest thing that they mentioned, but only once and very slightly, was all of these features are coming free in iOS 18, etc. And so it leaves a bit of room for them to say in the future, these features are free and we're going to charge you for these other premium features. So I'm wondering if maybe with like that Apple One membership, or if you buy iCloud Plus, then you might get different features in the future, just like you get private relay and things like that if you have an iCloud Plus, or sorry, wow, I'm getting it all mixed up now. No, it is iCloud Plus or Apple One membership. You get a few more features than those who don't have it. So that's a really interesting thing. But in terms of Apple Intelligence, like I said, image generation, GIF integration, generation, my goodness, I can't speak, writing, so, and from emails to notes, anywhere you can write, it can be used. And then, oh gosh, asking questions with Siri is going to get way better, and actionable. So Siri will even be able to action things like I mentioned with the Photos app, but hopefully in the future it'll be able to action more items. And so that's up to the developers to also integrate into their apps if you want to allow this to really function full circle. Let's say if you're planning a trip, it'll book tickets, it'll book hotels, it'll make reservations for restaurants. So that's really where the future is, and let's see how much of that Apple can integrate into their devices. So really cool event. It's a more exciting WWDC than usual. It felt like a fire hose because they were going through everything so fast, and I had to read the last panel of whatever section where they show everything, because sometimes there was features on there that they didn't even talk about. So really great event, and hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, and keep an eye out for my iPhone 15 Pro Max review after using it since day one, almost over 6 months, almost 7 months after it came out. So again, thanks for watching. The sun's in my eyes. I gotta go. I'll catch you in the next one.